The sun was already leaning toward evening when the black car slowly rolled into the wide compound of Mr. Desmond's mansion. The air was filled with quiet excitement as the workers gathered around, whispering among themselves. The Desmond daughters were returning home from abroad, and though they had been away for just 2 years, it felt like a lifetime. Kayama stepped down first. Tall, graceful, and soft in spirit, she paused for a moment and inhaled deeply. The scent of her homeland, the dry earth, the distant smoke from cooked food, and the hibiscus tree by the gate all reminded her that she was home. Her heart softened. Behind her, the second door swung open, and Jessica stepped out. Her heels hit the ground sharply. Her sunglasses stayed on as she looked around with a smirk. "Nothing has changed," she said with a cold laugh, tossing her long braids over her shoulder. "Still the same boring place." Kayama didn't respond. She picked up her handbag and began reaching for her suitcase. Just then, a young man wearing a gatekeeper's uniform walked toward them. He had deep brown skin, neatly trimmed hair, and calm, unreadable eyes. He opened the gate earlier and had now returned to resume his position. Jessica's voice sliced through the air like a knife. You there," she shouted at the man. The young man turned to her politely. "Yes, ma'am?" "Are you blind or just plain slow?" she barked. "Come and carry our bags inside." The young man stood respectfully but firm. "Sorry, ma'am. Carrying bags isn't part of my duty. Someone from inside will assist you." Jessica's eyes widened with disbelief. "What did you just say?" "I said, 'Shut up!'" she screamed, raising her hand like she might slap him. "Do you know who I am?" Kayama stepped in immediately. "Jessica, please, there's no need for all this. I can carry mine." She bent gently and lifted her bags one by one, while the staff rushed toward her to help. Jessica hissed loudly. "This is the problem with all of you. You let these poor people talk to you like equals." Kayama gave her a tired look, but said nothing. Inside the house, the workers rushed around them, welcoming them home. Everyone smiled more brightly when Kayama entered. They had missed her, not just because she was the quieter one, but because she saw them. She greeted the cook by name. She asked the driver how his leg was. She thanked the gardener for trimming the hibiscus tree. Jessica, on the other hand, marched to her room like a queen returning from war. She flung her bag on the bed and shouted for her juice to be brought chilled. Meanwhile, the gatekeeper, Peter, returned to his small quarters outside. He took off his cap and sat by the wall, watching the sky change color. He wasn't just any gatekeeper. He was Peter Evans, the only son of Mr. Evans, Mr. Desmond's oldest business partner. Their friendship had lasted over 20 years. They built companies together, they traveled the world together, and during one quiet evening in London, Mr. Evans had said, "I want our families to be joined. I want Peter to marry one of your daughters." But Peter, wise beyond his years, had asked for something strange. "Let me go into their house as a gatekeeper," he said. "Let me see them for who they truly are, without the glitter of wealth and the expectations of name." Now that test had begun, and today the first sign had already shown. The next few days passed quietly in the Desmond mansion. Kayama spent most of her time indoors, catching up with her grandmother in the garden, reading novels in the balcony, and helping the cook in the kitchen when no one was watching. The workers adored her. They said she was light in human form, never raising her voice, never looking down on anyone. Jessica, on the other hand, had resumed her position as the self-proclaimed queen of the house. She shouted at the staff like they were animals. She insulted the gardener for trimming the flowers too short. She accused the cleaner of using her towel, and she refused to eat if the food was not served on gold-rimmed plates. Her pride filled the house like smoke, choking anyone who came too or close. Peter watched everything from his small post at the gate. He spoke little, moved gently, and kept his uniform neat. He knew what he was doing. Every day he wrote in a small brown notebook at night, notes of the two sisters, their character, their behavior, their hearts. He had not yet made any judgment, but something about Kayama made him pause. One afternoon, as the sun climbed high, Jessica stood by the pool, scrolling her phone. Then she called out sharply, "Where is that useless gateman?" Peter heard her from his post and walked over. "You sent for me, Mom?" She turned to him with a bored look. "Yes, I want you to go to the market and get me specific perfumes. Write them down." Peter frowned slightly. "I'm not allowed to leave the house, Mom. You'll have to send the driver." Jessica blinked, as if she didn't hear correctly. "What did you just say?" I said before he could finish. A hot slap landed across his cheek. "You think you have the right to tell me no?" she screamed. "You are a gateman, a common nobody." Peter stood still, refusing to touch his face or say a word. Just then, Kayama came running from the hallway. She had heard everything. "Jessica!" she shouted. "What is wrong with you? He disrespected me!" Jessica yelled. "He only said he wasn't allowed to leave the house. He wasn't rude," Kayama replied, stepping in front of Peter. Protectively. "How can you slap someone like this?" Jessica crossed her arms, boiling with rage. "I will not be disrespected by a servant in my own house." Kayama turned to Peter, who still stood like a statue, his face red from the slap. "I'm so sorry," she said gently. "Please don't mind her." Peter looked at her for a long moment. There was no pride in her, no cruelty. He only nodded. "It's all right, Kayama." Her name sounded different coming from his lips. Soft, careful, like it mattered. That evening, when the sun had dropped low, Kayama came to the gate quietly. She brought him a glass of water and sat on the small stool beside him. "Are you okay?" she asked. Peter gave a small smile. "I've had worse. You didn't deserve that," she whispered. Their eyes met. There was no music playing, no grand moment, just silence. And something beautiful beginning to form between them. That night, Peter couldn't sleep. He stared at the stars through the small window of his room, thinking about the girl who stood up for him, and the other one who slapped him without reason. His test was working, but his heart was beginning to feel something he hadn't planned for, and that was dangerous. From that evening onward, something changed between Kayama and Peter. It wasn't loud. It wasn't planned. It was like a gentle breeze that slowly became a warm wind, unseen but deeply felt. Every evening, Kayama found a reason to pass by the gate. Sometimes it was to bring Peter a glass of juice. Other times she simply stood near him, watching the birds settle in the trees. And Peter, though always quiet, began to open up. He talked about the weather, about how the compound reminded him of his father's country house, and about how peaceful the evenings were when the noise of the mansion faded. Kayama listened with a smile. She didn't know yet who he truly was, but something about him felt safe. His voice calmed her. His eyes saw her, not as Mr. Desmond's daughter, not as a rich girl, but just as a person. One afternoon, she brought him a book. I thought, "You might enjoy reading," she said shyly. Peter looked at the cover. It was a simple novel, one of those stories about love and life in the village. "You read this?" he asked, surprised. Kayama laughed softly. "I read everything, stories. Helped me breathe." From that day they shared books. Sometimes they discussed characters. Other times they just sat in silence, side by side, the gate open, the evening breeze passing between them. But while this quiet friendship bloomed like a flower in secret, Jessica burned with anger. She had noticed the small glances, the smiles, the way Kayama no longer rushed into the house, and she hated it. How could her younger sister, who was supposed to be calm and modest, be the one drawing the attention of a man, even if he was just a gatekeeper? One morning, she stormed into their father's study. "Daddy," she said firmly, arms folded across her chest. Mr. Desmond looked up from his papers. "Yes, Jessica?" "It's Kayama. She's embarrassing us." Mr. Desmond frowned. "What do you mean?" "She's becoming too close to that gatekeeper. I've seen her sitting with him, bringing him drinks, talking like they're equals." Mr. Desmond leaned back in his chair and stared at his daughter. Jessica's voice rose. "What if someone sees her? What if the media hears about this? Do you know how that would make us look? Our family name—" "That's enough," Mr. Desmond said sharply. Jessica flinched but remained stubborn. "Call your sister for me," he added quietly. Minutes later, Kayama stood before him. Her hands were folded gently in front of her. "Sit. You down," Mr. Desmond said. She obeyed. "I've heard about you and the gatekeeper," he began. She nodded. "Yes, father. We are friends." Mr. Desmond's voice was calm but firm. "Why would you choose to be close to someone so far below your status? You are the daughter of Desmond. You have wealth, beauty, and dignity." Kayama raised her eyes slowly. "And I also have a heart, father." He was quiet. "I know he is not rich. I know what others might say, but I've watched him. He is kind. He respects people. He doesn't shout or pretend. He listens to me without trying to impress me, and I like him." "Like him?" her father echoed. "As in, I love him," she said softly. "And I'm not ashamed." Mr. Desmond looked at her, searching for signs of confusion, but there was only quiet strength. Finally, he sighed. "You are my daughter, Kayama. I may not agree, but I won't fight you. But promise me, if this brings you pain, don't hide it from me. I promise." That night, Kayama met Peter at his post. She told him everything. Her talk with her father, her sister's betrayal, her fears. Peter listened silently, and inside, his heart, something shifted. She had passed another test, but now it wasn't just a test anymore. He was falling. The days that followed felt different. Even the wind carried a kind of warmth that hadn't been there before. Kayama and Peter were no longer just sharing books and quiet smiles. They were building something real. Though unspoken, it was felt in every glance, every pause, every time. Their hands almost touched, yet Peter carried a heavy weight in his chest. Every time Kayama sat beside him, laughing at one of his jokes or offering him water with her own hands, he was reminded of who he truly was. Not a gatekeeper, but Peter. Evans, son of the billionaire Mr. Evans. This wasn't just a test anymore. His heart had stepped into dangerous territory. He had fallen for her, but did she love him, or the version of him she thought he was? One evening, Peter sat with his father in a quiet corner of their estate. Mr. Evans had come into town briefly, and Peter had asked for a meeting away from Mr. Desmond's house. "I think she's the one," Peter said quietly. "She's different from her sister. She's kind. She treats everyone the same. She doesn't care about money or power." Mr. Evans looked at his son, his eyes calm. "And you? Are you still testing her? Or testing yourself?" Peter lowered his eyes. "That's the problem. I can't even tell the difference anymore." His father placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then test her once more. Not with words, but with life. Let her meet the kind of wealth she could have without knowing it's from you." That night, Peter thought long and hard. Then he made a plan, too. Days later, Kayama received a call from a stranger. "Hello, is this Miss Kayama Desmond?" a soft-spoken woman asked. "Yes, it is. Who's speaking?" "You've been invited to a private luxury retreat. You were selected for our guest trial, all expenses covered. There's no cost to you. We only ask that you come and enjoy." Kayama was confused. "I didn't sign up for anything." "The tea?" Woman laughed gently. "Your name was submitted by someone who admires you." She agreed hesitantly. 2 days later, a shiny black car arrived at the Desmond mansion. Even Jessica came out of the house, frowning. "Who's this one coming to? Pick you up?" she asked. "I don't know," Kayama said honestly. The retreat was nothing like she had seen before. The food, the perfume in the air, the silk gowns placed on her bed, it was a world made of dreams. And yet her mind kept wandering back to Peter. the quiet at the gate, the soft way he said her name. That night, while sitting by the candlelit poolside, a well-dressed young man approached her. "Good evening, Miss Kiama," he said. "May I sit?" She nodded. He smiled. "I've been watching you for a while. You're unlike anyone I've met. I come from a wealthy family, and I could give you anything you've ever desired." Kiama tilted her head. "Thank you, but I already have everything I need. Money? No," she said softly. "Peace and love." Her eyes drifted away. "Maybe not yet, but when I do, it won't come from perfume or fine suits." The man smiled faintly and stood. "You've answered well." She was returned home the next day. That evening she sat at the gate with Peter again. "How was the retreat?" he asked casually. "It was nice," she replied, "but I miss the peace of this place." Peter's heart swelled. She had passed. But he still said nothing. He wanted the truth to come from him, but not yet. Not until the world could see what he had seen. Not until the day the masks would fall. And that day was coming. Kiama had never known her heart could be this full. Yet, so unsure, she didn't have the exact words for what she felt for Peter. It wasn't just friendship anymore. It wasn't just admiration either. It was something softer, deeper, like a flame that warmed without burning. And every time she looked into his eyes, she wondered if he felt the same. But not everyone was happy. Jessica watched from a distance, eyes full of contempt. Her pride had been wounded ever since their father refused to punish Kiama for associating with a lowlife. To her, it was an insult that her younger sister, the quiet one, the one nobody used to notice, was now drawing attention from the very person she had tried to humiliate. One evening, Jessica barged into their father's study again. She stood by the window, arms folded, her jaw tight. "You made a mistake letting Kiama continue this madness," she began. Mr. Desmond looked up wearily. "Jessica, we've talked about this." "No, you talked," she snapped, "and you chose to ignore the disgrace she's bringing to our family." "She says she loves him," Mr. Desmond replied quietly. Jessica scoffed. "She's young. She doesn't know what she's doing. She'll regret it. She's not a child, Jessica. She's blinded by sympathy, and why aren't you protecting the Desmond name like you used to?" Mr. Desmond sighed deeply. "Because I've started to wonder if maybe it's not about the name, but about the heart." Jessica said nothing, but inside she boiled with rage. That night she made a call. "Find out who that gatekeeper really is," she told a friend in town. "I don't trust him. Something feels off." Meanwhile, Kiama sat again by the gate. Peter was polishing the edges of the iron gate when she arrived with a small bag. "What's that?" he asked, smiling. "Meat pie," she said. "Hot." "I made them myself." Peter laughed softly. "You cooked?" She nodded. "Try it. I need an honest opinion." He took a bite, nodded slowly and said, "You just might open your own bakery soon." They laughed together and the world around them faded. Then Peter turned serious. "Kiama," he began slowly, "have you ever wondered if I wasn't who I seem to be?" She looked at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he paused, "if I wasn't a gatekeeper, would you still talk to me the same way?" She didn't hesitate. "I would talk to you exactly the same. Because it's not the title that matters to me. It's the person." Peter looked away for a moment, overwhelmed. "I've never met anyone like you," he said quietly. "And I've never met anyone like you," she whispered back. They sat in silence again, watching the sky turn from blue to grey. But somewhere beyond the mansion walls, Jessica's investigation was in motion. The call she made had already reached a man who once worked with Mr. Evans, and the truth was beginning to stir like a secret, waking from sleep. Back inside the house, Mr. Desmond stared long at a picture frame on his desk. one from a business trip years ago with him and Mr. Evans shaking hands, Peter still a young boy in the background. He picked up the photo and sighed. "I wonder," he said aloud, "if this was your plan all along, Evans." He looked out the window at his daughter and the gatekeeper. Or if this is simply fate. The Desmond mansion was glowing with preparations. The 30-year wedding anniversary of Mr. and Mrs. Desmond was just days away. Decorators moved in and out. Gold ribbons and white roses lined the courtyard. Invitations had been sent to dignitaries, business partners, and family friends from far and wide. To the outside world, everything looked perfect. But within those mansion walls, something delicate and dangerous was unfolding. Jessica had received a message from the man she hired to investigate Peter. She sat on her bed, scrolling through the pictures he sent. Her eyes froze on one image, a younger Peter Evans standing beside Mr. Evans in a luxury car showroom. Another photo showed Peter at a business event in London. The final one showed him walking into the Desmond compound, wearing the same gatekeeper uniform. Jessica's heart raced. "I knew it," she whispered. "He's a fraud." She stood up sharply. Her mind began to spin with plans. She could have gone straight to her father. But no, she needed everyone to see this. She needed Kayama to feel it, to be humiliated in front of all their guests. She smiled cruelly to herself. The anniversary would be her stage. Peter had no idea that his cover was cracking. He had been busy helping the compound workers hang lanterns at the entrance. Kayama watched him from the balcony, her heart warm. He never acted like someone looking for praise. He worked quietly, greeted everyone with respect, and even offered the little children candies when no one was watching. That evening she found him by the flower bed, wiping sweat from his brow. "You're working so hard," she said softly. He smiled. "It's your parents' big day. I want everything to be perfect." Kayama looked around. "Peter, will you be there?" He paused. "At the party?" She nodded. "Yes." He looked down at his hands. "I don't know if they'd want me there." "I want you there," she said, "again, please, as my guest." Peter looked into her eyes, and for a moment the fear in his chest melted. "I'll be there," he said, but inside he knew he couldn't keep the secret much longer. The day of the anniversary arrived like a bright sunrise. The mansion was glowing. Guests flooded in, men in clean suits, women in sparkling gowns. The air smelled of perfume and celebration. Kayama wore a flowing blue gown that hugged her gently. Her hair was packed in curls that danced with every step. She searched the crowd quietly. Peter entered unnoticed, dressed in a clean black suit. He walked in with Mr. Evans, who smiled calmly, watching everything like a man waiting for the right moment. Jessica stood near the podium, her lips painted red, eyes sharp. She held a brown envelope in her hand. As Mr. Desmond stepped up to speak, Jessica moved beside him. "Father, before you begin," she said loudly, "I have something important to show everyone." The crowd turned. She held up the photo of Peter with his father in London. Gasps rippled through the guests. All eyes turned to Peter. Kayama looked up, frozen. Mr. Desmond's face remained unreadable. Jessica smiled, proud of herself, but before anyone could speak, Mr. Evans stepped forward. "Yes," he said in a calm voice, "it's true. My son Peter has been living here in disguise. Because I asked him to. Because we made a promise years ago that our children would marry from families of good hearts." He looked at Kayama, then back at the crowd. "And only one of your daughters passed the test." The silence in the room was sharp, so sharp it could cut glass. All the guests, the friends and business partners sat frozen, their eyes bouncing between Peter, Mr. Evans, and the Desmond family. No one spoke. Even the birds that had perched on the balcony earlier seemed to stop chirping. Jessica's smile faded slowly. She hadn't expected this. Not this calm truth, not this powerful silence. You planned this," she stuttered, turning to her father. "You knew?" Mr. Desmond did not respond at first. He stared long at Peter, then at Kiama, then finally at Jessica. "I knew," he said slowly, "but not all of it. Mr. Evans shared it with me after Peter had already begun. He asked for one chance, to see not just who you are in front of cameras and guests, but who you are in quiet moments, who you are when you think no one is watching." Jessica's face burned. "So you all think I failed? Is that what this is about?" "No one needed to say it," her mother added gently from the corner. "You showed it yourself." A tear slid down Jessica's cheek, but it wasn't the kind that came from sorrow. It was the kind that came from humiliation. Peter stepped forward now. His voice was soft, but his presence filled the room. "I didn't come to shame anyone. I came to find truth. I was raised to understand that beauty and wealth mean nothing if the heart is cold. I didn't expect to find someone like Kiama. I didn't expect to feel what I feel. But she reminded me that love isn't found in big places. It's found in how you treat people, in how you listen, in how you care when no one is watching." He turned to Kiama now. The room faded for her. All she could see was him. "I was going to tell you the truth, Kiama. I had planned to do it after this day. But now that everyone knows, let me say this clearly. I am not just Peter the gatekeeper. I am Peter Evans. My father is a billionaire. I own companies. I fly planes. But none of that matters if I don't have you." Tears welled in Kiama's eyes. "I don't care who you are," she whispered. "You could be a king or a commoner. I saw you when no one else wanted to look, and I loved what I saw." The hall broke into soft murmurs. Some guests wiped their eyes. Some looked away in guilt. Mr. Evans stepped forward again. "Desmond," he said to his old friend, "our friendship has lasted through seasons. This day, it seals it forever." He took Kiama's hand and placed it in Peter's. "With your blessing," he said, "I would be honored to call her my daughter." Mr. Desmond stood slowly. His voice was low but steady. "You already have my blessing and my pride." He turned to Kiama. "You've brought honor to this family." Kiama smiled through her tears. Jessica turned away, her fists clenched, her face red with shame. She had planned to expose a fraud. Instead, she had exposed herself. As music began to play softly in the background, Peter and Kiama stood at the center of the hall, no longer a gatekeeper and a rich girl, but two hearts that had found each other without titles or lies, and everyone rose to their feet, not because of wealth, but because of love. The sun rose slowly over the Desmond mansion, spilling golden light across the courtyard. It had been 1 week since the anniversary, 1 week since the truth came out, but the ripple of that truth was still echoing. Kiama stood before the mirror in her bedroom, her heart calm like still water. There was no makeup on her face, only a soft smile. She had always believed in kindness, even when her sister mocked her, even when her choices were questioned. And now the truth had honored her in a way she never expected. There was a knock at the door. "Come in," she said softly. Her mother entered holding a white box. "This arrived for you," she said, placing it gently on the table. Kiama opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten note and a pair of delicate gold earrings. The note read, "You saw me when the world saw a uniform. You heard me when the world walked past. If there's still space in your heart, will you be my wife?" Peter Kiama smiled, her hands gently covering her mouth. The wedding was quiet but beautiful. Peter didn't want a grand event. Kiama didn't either. They chose to hold it in the very compound where their story began. The same gate where Peter had once stood every morning now held white ribbons and rose petals. Guests sat in white chairs arranged under the tall trees. The sky was clear. The birds returned, singing their approval this time. Mr. Evans and Mr. Desmond stood side by side, watching with pride. Workers from the house, cleaners, cooks, the old gardener, were all dressed neatly in the front row. They had watched the love bloom. Now they were watching it be sealed. Jessica sat quietly at the back. She wore a dull grey dress. Not because she couldn't afford color, but because her heart was still learning how to let go of pride. As Kayama walked down the aisle in a simple but elegant gown, everyone stood. Peter's eyes locked on her, and in that moment all the disguises, all the testing, all the fear faded. This was real. When they reached the altar, Peter held her hands, gently but firmly. "From the day you defended me, I knew," he said, "I would never want anyone else beside me. And from the day you stood with calmness, even when insulted," Kayama replied, "I knew you were a man of strength, not just status." The officiant smiled. "Then before these witnesses, I pronounce you husband and wife." Applause broke through the air like rain after drought. Even Jessica clapped softly, her eyes wet. For the first time in her life, she felt something shift. Not envy, not bitterness, but maybe admiration. Later that evening, Peter stood beside Kayama, looking at the stars. "This is where it all began," he said. "Right here, me opening that gate, you walking past with grace." Kayama leaned on his shoulder. "And this is where it all continues." Their story had been born from simplicity, from truth, from quiet acts of character when no one was watching. And in the end, it wasn't wealth that brought them together. It was love, unfiltered, unforced, and unashamed. Hello. Champions, I hope you enjoyed our stories. Please hit the like button, leave a comment below, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks,